Sonic the Hedgehog, a franchise that needs no introduction, especially here on my channel. Am I a Sonic too? Wait, when did it all go wrong? But what exactly makes the Blue Rat so compelling? Some would say the gameplay, the music maybe, or maybe even the character designs. All good answers, but let's go back to that last one for a second. Characters. There's a lot of them in this franchise, and as a dedicated Sonic fan from childhood and needing some meds to keep me focused and functional throughout the day, I know a lot about these characters. You've got folks from the mainline games, of course, your Amy's, Tails, Shadows, and the like. You've got your Archie comic exclusives like Sally, Rotor, Bunny Rabbit, and fucking Mega Man. Then there's IDW with Tangle, Whisper, Surge. The point is, there's so many characters to learn about and connect with in this franchise. Some canon, some not. But one thing that has become abundantly clear is that Daddy Sega never strays too far from their leading lad when it comes to their top game series. There is rarely ever a game in which Sonic himself isn't the main focus. Now, don't get me wrong, it has happened before. Even recently, we got Shadow Generations, which I count as its own game, in which Sonic was hardly in it at all. There's that other Shadow game too, let's not forget about that. But what about the others? There are more characters in this franchise after all, not just Sonic and Shadow, right? Right. So I decided to use my crazy daydreams and abysmal levels of game design knowledge to come up with a game for a vastly underutilized character in the series. He's rad, he's red, the one, the only, Chomper. Are you laughing yet? Knuckles the Echidna, one of the most well-known and recognizable characters in the Sonic series, and as of recent times, seen a bit of a resurgence with his inclusion as a secondary antagonist in the second Sonic film, as well as his notable character arc in Sonic Frontiers. Knuckles, for those of you who maybe don't know, already has a bit of a solo game already, Knuckles Chaotix, released on the Sega 32X back in 1995 to very little praise, if any, honestly, and acted as not only his first outing without being an additional character to Sonic's game, but also the debut of Espio the Chameleon, Vector the Crocodile, Charmy Bee, and Mighty the Armadillo. Well, technically Mighty made his real debut in Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, this little arcade game back in 1993, but that's not really the point. What I'm getting at is that Knuckles deserves a solo game, a new solo game. A game where he alone is the primary focus. So that's what I did. In my head. Now, I'm not a game dev or anything, but I do have some ideas. And with Knuckles taking the honor of popping my proverbial cherry in hypothetical video games, I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with the results. So, let's give you a tour of the game in my brain. I call it Knuckles Primal Chaos. It's really cringe when I think about it, like when I say it out loud, but I promise you if Sega came up with this, you'd be all over it, so just roll with it. To start things off, I'll go over the concept of the game. I decided to follow in the footsteps of Sega and forego the tried and true gameplay styles that the Sonic series is known for. Rather than blazing through locales with supersonic speed, Knuckles instead will take notes from his previous outings as a treasure hunter and showcase his still remarkable speed, but with the focus more so on his capabilities as a hunter and a fighter. Now, before you grimace and moan and yada yada yada, no, I'm not trying to just bring back the SA2 gameplay. We'll get to that. Just stick with me here. Now, I envision this game kind of taking some notes from things like Black Myth Wukong with the behind the back gameplay style with the focus on combat and exploration. We got to see what grand spectacle and scale can be like in the Sonic series with Sonic Frontiers. So let's take that same level of hype and over-the-top action and put Knuckles at the forefront. Now, I don't envision Knuckles turning super or anything like that, so maybe it won't be action on the same scale physically as Super Sonic versus all the Titans, but I would still like to have the same energy, the same heart. More on that later when we get to the gameplay section. Now that you have a mild understanding of the concept I'm running with, I want to talk about the story. It's not entirely fleshed out yet, but I do have some plot points and relevant details that I did consider. For starters, the game will be set entirely on Angel Island, post-Frontiers. I really appreciated the character development that we got to see from the characters featured in that game, and I would like to continue with that trend. So the beginning of the game sees Knuckles and Tails on Angel Island, with Tails just having convinced Knuckles to allow for some technological defense and surveillance systems to be installed around the island in order to assist Knuckles with his protection of the place. This is a direct result of both of their character arcs being set in motion in Frontiers, that being Tails making his own calls kind of without Sonic, and Knuckles allowing others to help him out sometimes and try to relax every now and again. Anyway, the main antagonist, for simplicity's sake, is going to be Eggman, and with his research that he obtained from his time on the Starfall Islands, has developed next level technological capabilities. So he essentially takes over Tails' systems and converts them into his own assets. For context, the research he gathered, as well as what we now know about the origins of the Chaos Emeralds, has opened the door for figuring out more about the Master Emerald and what it's capable of. Now, this leaves all of Tails' machinery completely useless to him and forces Knuckles to once again use his natural abilities as a hunter and a fighter to retake the island that Eggman has encased in some sort of chaos-powered dome, sphere, thing, preventing anybody from leaving once they enter. That pretty much sets up the general plot of the story, but throughout the game I envision maybe seeing Knuckles' character arc take him on a journey of self-reflection and discovery. What does it really mean to be the Guardian in the context of being Knuckles the Echidna? Someone who isn't alone in the world anymore. Someone that can rely on others sometimes. Someone who can take a break and experience the world without constantly needing to rush back to his post. Of course, this is a Sonic game, so it won't get too existential, but I want it to be real and honest about the position that Knuckles finds himself in. But enough about him. Let's talk about the other guys. You can't have a story without other characters. Most of the time. As mentioned before, we've got Knuckles, Tails, and Eggman accounted for, but in this game, I envision seeing Amy Rose, the reappearance of the Chaotix, Rouge, we'd see Tikal and Chaos again, maybe not physically, maybe more some sort of flashback or Force Ghost, I don't know. On the Eggman side of things, we see Metal Sonic, who will be a reoccurring antagonist, maybe a bit of a skill check for Knuckles throughout the story. But the character I was most excited about is a bit unexpected, Cream the Rabbit. And to make it even better, I have the perfect role for her to play. Cream is going to be the temporary caretaker of the Chao that Knuckles can encounter and rescue throughout the island. I can't imagine a better person for the job, honestly. You may be wondering why Cream is here in the first place, and I actually thought of that too, so just briefly. The meta answer is that I think Cream is adorable. She's super polite to everybody, she brings that childlike innocence and wonder to the story whenever she's involved, it's adorable. But the plot relevant reason is because of the tampering of the Master Emerald, the Chao, being creatures heavily associated with it, were drawn to the emerald instinctively. Of course that means Cream's Chao, Cheese, and Chocola were headed that way, so she followed them to keep them safe and return back home with them. Tagging along with her is, of course, Amy, like I mentioned before, always keeping a watchful eye on what is essentially her younger sister, like the best girl that she is. Now, since we're already somewhat on the subject, let's take a detour for a minute and talk about the Chao Garden that will be featured in this game. Because I think we as Sonic fans have wanted the Chao Garden to return in some way, shape, or form forever, and this game we will get that. For the most part, it will end up functioning pretty similarly to how it did back in SA2. Raise Chao, focus their abilities to get unique variations of Chao through certain fruits or other items. But the difference between this Chao Garden and those from the past will be the ability to build and customize the garden, making each player's garden unique to them. Now, I don't imagine a full-scale build simulation where each pixel can be completely customized. Instead, I was leaning more towards players having some customization options and premeditated locations around the garden. Certain structures can be altered or replaced with others entirely. And getting all this done while players are out in the field will be Cream, handling things with the Chao like I said before. I was thinking there would be a prerequisite mission to complete that sees players meeting up with Cream on the island, helping her set up shop in maybe a destroyed Chao Garden. And with materials gathered throughout the game, maybe Cream can work on restoring and upgrading the garden while Knuckles is gone. Pretty sweet, right? I think so, at least. Maybe I'll do an in-depth video on my dream Chao Garden, but I've diverged enough. I just really love the Chao. I think I'm gonna get like a dark Chao tattoo or something. Hey guys, it's a post recording acid. I realized I kind of wanted to go a little bit more in depth than I did when I originally recorded this, so I want to talk about the Chao garden. I know I mentioned before about maybe restoring / building the Chao garden up, making it a little, unique. Initially I was thinking it would be multiple Chao gardens like scattered around, but I think I want to just condense that into maybe one big one, and it'll end up kind of, like I said before, being similar to the Sonic Adventure 2 Chao garden. You show up, you deposit materials, yada yada yada, and you grow your Chao with the help of Cream. But as far as like the building aspect of it, I want players to want to go back to the Chao garden. So initially it will be tattered in ruins, but as you come back and you bring Cream materials, you slowly start to see it expand and build up, and you get to see that your time investment, your material investment is paying off. So it's not a waste. And as you further develop in the Chao garden, objectives will come up, side objectives actually, and maybe you'll get some unique resources to hunt down, or maybe there'll be a Chao that wandered off, you need to go get it back, something like that. I don't want it to be purposeless, so whenever you complete those objectives, there will be some kind of reward that will feed back into the Chao garden. One thought I had was, oh, this specific Chao wandered off, and the last place that Cream managed to spot it was heading towards, let's say, a place that seems to have been corrupted by some messed up chaos energy. So you go, you get that Chao, it's sick, so you bring it back to Cream, and you go back off onto the main objective. You're fighting, you're doing what you got to do. You just so happen to come back and check up on that Chao, or even just to stop in and deposit some materials. Cream nursed it back to health, but it's starting to look a little bit like Chaos Zero in particular. Why is that? Oh, this is that Chao that was around some suspicious looking corrupted chaos energy, huh? I'm sure you'll go and tell your friends, hey, look, I did this, and now I got a chaos Chao, so now they're gonna want to go do that. They're gonna want to start checking in at the Chao garden, seeing what side objectives have come up, seeing if Cream needs any help with anything, stuff like that. I really want to take what Shadow Generations did and add in those unique character Chaos. I guess Sonic Adventure 2 did it first, but you get my point. I will go ahead and throw this out there. Like I mentioned before, Rouge will be in the game as well. I think a lot of people really enjoyed the dynamic between Rouge and Knuckles and Sonic Adventure 2. I mean, the whole Knuckles shipping is fucking huge. So I see no reason as to not bring that back this time around. The last character I wanted to mention, though, is Metal Sonic. I guess I really mentioned, I already said he was going to be in the game, but the character I want to focus on is Metal Sonic. In my mind, I saw Metal as being a reoccurring skill check, like I mentioned before, throughout the game that prevents players from progressing further should they be unable to take him down. It'll be a nice challenge too. Mano-a-mano brawl, no holds barred. If players show enough skill, they could take Metal down earlier than intended and progress into the equivalent of, I don't know, Khalid for that bit of the game. Now that I'm thinking about it, my idea is like subconsciously taking inspiration from Chaos. You fight Chaos multiple times throughout the game, that being Sonic Adventure, and each time he's stronger with more abilities and power. Granted, my concept has a bit more RPG elements and player freedom when it comes to how and when to fight, but you see the similarities. Now, I think that's all for the characters as far as just throwing my idea at you. There are more, of course, but I've been on this section for a while now. I took the time to diverge into the Chao garden, for fuck's sake. Next up on the chopping block, gameplay. So, from the very conception of this brainchild of mine, I had the idea that we would be taking a page from other action RPGs. Like I mentioned before, Black Myth Wukong, or maybe even something like God of War Ragnarok. Knuckles, being our stand-in protagonist, is the focal point of the gameplay loop, right? So I want to always make sure he's the center of attention. I personally like the idea of a camera that rests just a little bit closer than players may be used to in a Sonic game, but if you've played something like God of War 4 and beyond, like I mentioned before, then this will start to look familiar. Of course, the camera will shift back to expand the player's FOV when Knuckles is in combat or moving fast, like running, gliding, digging, etc. Cutscenes obviously are going to have a more dynamic or cinematic camera, so no worries there. Now, with the camera talk out of the way, the meat and potatoes, let's talk about combat. As I'm sure you figured out by now, you smart, sexy thing you, this game is going to be an action RPG, and you can't have one of those without a skill tree. We've seen skill trees in Sonic series before, however, the closest example to what I had in mind would be Sonic Frontiers. That skill tree was pretty small though, nothing too crazy, but I think it had a decent framework. One thing I would change though is dividing the skill tree for Knuckles into maybe categories. There'd be a tree for combat abilities, exploration, and general upgrades like strength or how slow Knuckles' descent is while gliding. In doing this, players will have a bit more freedom and control in how Knuckles may play at any given point in the game. Nothing insane concept-wise, I know, but I think it would be a fun time. I don't want to go into depth about each skill tree too much. I'll let you guys come up with your own skills down in the comments. While you're down there, why don't you go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me out, lets me know that you guys really like this idea. Hey, this is post recording acid again. I just realized that I had more to talk about again. So yeah. So I think I mentioned that I'm taking inspiration from like God of War. I don't really plan to have this huge, crazy, super in-depth combat system. Fairly simple. Multiple button presses for attacks and things like that. Think like just a little bit more in depth than maybe Sonic Heroes was. Maybe taking a page from like Sonic Unleashed, where the Werehog would get new skills and you have different button combinations to do different combos or different attacks. Like, it's nothing super crazy. To add to the combat, I was debating maybe keeping it to myself, but I decided to go ahead and just share my idea with you guys since I'm already doing that. I want Knuckles to get a new ability. Now, for those of you that have seen the Paramount Plus series, the Knuckles series, I actually haven't seen it myself, but I do know some stuff that happens. So spoilers for that. You gone yet? Okay, good. So Knuckles gets the Flames of Disaster. Obvious reference to 06, Silver, Iblis, all that crap. I don't know if they go into the series like lore wise, but Knuckles gets fire powers with his fists. I think that's kind of cool. I don't want to do that, at least not in that aspect. So instead of doing just basic flames, I want to lean into the chaos abilities. So Knuckles isn't going to have things like chaos control or anything like that, but he is going to be imbued with the chaos power, like as a power source. So back in like the Archie comics, Knuckles turned green for a while for whatever reason. I think it's like he's just radiating chaos energy. I want to take that concept and just kind of limit it to his fists and maybe his abilities. Maybe he can throw out some kind of projectile waves of chaos energy once you unlock a certain skill or you get X amount of whatever resource. I don't know. That's all later on dev stuff. This is just the core concept is Knuckles is becoming more in tune with his abilities as a guardian and as somebody who is directly linked to the chaos energy. So I think it'd be fun to have a skill tree dedicated to his chaos abilities too. But enough about that. I think that's a good basis to leave the combat side of things on. As far as the location, when it comes to the gameplay, I want to kind of have things be similar to the open zone concept or of Frontiers, or maybe even taking a page from something like Destiny, where you go to this location and you have different points within that location, kind of like a area and then a sub area inside of the area. Areaception. The entirety of the area being like Angel Island, and then minor locations inside of Angel Island will be like Sky Sanctuary, Lava Reef. Maybe we'll go and check out the old Super Emerald Shrine, you know? the ruins of the Death Egg. These are places that you'll be able to visit that are all contained within the Angel Island space. So the whole game takes place on Angel Island, but you will see various locations within Angel Island. And to prevent you from having to slog all the way from Angel Island down into the depths of the ruins of the Death Egg, I thought it'd be fun to set up little campsites. So Knuckles, he's roughing it, you know. This is back to primal basics, survival, all that stuff. It's him against everything else. So he set up little campsites, little places to rest, maybe to upgrade, maybe to train or sit and meditate throughout Angel Island. And those are going to act as either, I don't know if I want to make them save points, but fast travel locations or places, like I said before, to train and upgrade and recover health, things like that. However in depth we can get with that. But speaking of the training slash meditation, I thought it would be kind of cool, since I mentioned earlier in the video about Tikal and Chaos, maybe they can act as the quote-unquote training simulator liaison. So I imagine Knuckles sitting down at a campsite, you know, he's safe, he's good, he can take the time to spend his experience points to meditate, and in his mind he's working with Tikal and Chaos, maybe even fighting Chaos, like, you know, sparring wise, with the help of Tikal to practice his abilities, his combat abilities, especially when it comes to unlocking and upgrading the Chaos abilities. I think that'd be really fun. Maybe throw in some lore implications with some little side dialogue there. I just think that'd be really, really fun to see and experience as a Sonic fan. No, not even as a Sonic fan, as a Knuckles fan. Now, one more thing I did want to add about Chaos abilities. I don't know if it'll be unlockable, or if it is unlockable, it'll be like really early on, but I think it'd be really fun to see Knuckles like trying to tap into the Chaos network, so to speak, where he's able to kind of sense where he's kind of needing to go. Just another way for players to figure out where exactly they need to go in the game. And it'll be similar to like maybe the Eagle Vision or like an Elden Ring, where you can see the trail of grace kind of pointing you in the right direction. It'll be like that, but it'll be green kind of wispies, you know. When Knuckles kind of closes his eyes, he can sense what direction he's supposed to be going in with the Chaos Force. I want to talk about collectibles and customization. Collectibles, I was thinking, can range from like lore pieces to like physical collectibles that you can look at or inspect, maybe at a campsite, or maybe it'll be in the Chao Garden, who knows. But I want players to be able to go and see, like, oh, I found this shard of the mural from Sonic 3 that depicted Super Sonic. Let's just go with that. Maybe then we can get some dialogue about how Knuckles feels about this whole thing. Like, he's been here and there's this mural, this prophecy that talks about Sonic the Hedgehog. I think that'd be really interesting. But as far as cosmetics go, I do want to take a little bit of inspiration from Sonic Colors Ultimate. I don't think that game handled customization as well as it maybe could have. It was nice. I don't want to lean too far into customization to end up like Sonic Forces. I'm not trying to have no Sonic OCs, not this time around, maybe later. But I want players to be able to customize Knuckles in a way that maybe suits them. Now, it won't have any effect most of the time on gameplay. There's some other stuff that can be talked about with that in a second. But as far as pure cosmetics, I want players to want to do these objectives for the reward of cosmetics. Now, there's some stuff maybe you can, I don't know if they'll be crafting, but maybe you can just pick some stuff up and, oh, hey, maybe this can be fashioned into this, or yada yada yada. But my big idea that started this whole cosmetic thing is I want to complete some kind of challenge or discover some hidden location and find Knuckles' hat from the Sonic OVA. And I want that to be found early on so players can go through the rest of the game with a hat. I just think that'd be so freaking cool to see Knuckles with a hat again, like officially in a mainline game. I would die of laughter and joy. So stuff like that. I think it'd be really nice to see players be able to do that. Maybe add some tribal paint or something that's more reminiscent of the OG Knuckles tribe, like back in the day, you know? Or maybe he gets some different colored gloves, or maybe a different shoe design. Give him his goggles from Riders or something. I don't know, you know, just little things like that that maybe add a bit of customization, a bit of uniqueness to each player's experience going through the game. But that's just cosmetics. I do want to have some customization when it comes to maybe stats or abilities. Like Frontiers was able to do skill points and yada yada, collect these hearts or these fruits to upgrade your defense or your ring capacity or your health or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. I want something similar, but I'm thinking maybe going and talking to Tails will be able to allow Knuckles to equip himself with different items. You know, back in SA2, we got like the shovel claws or we got the sunglasses. Like these things unlock different abilities or different perks for Knuckles, or maybe it just makes things a little easier. So why not go back into that? Tails feels really bad about the fact that his equipment got taken over by Eggman, and now all this stuff is happening. All of Tails' equipment around the island is used against Knuckles now. So he's like, hey, look, I don't have my stuff. I can't leave the island because of the, you know, the big Chaos Dome or whatever. If you can bring me some materials, I can help you out. I can, you know, go back to basics and come up with some things to help you out. So here's some upgrades to your, you know, your knuckle nipples, you know, your claws, and that'll boost your ability to damage enemies. Maybe you'll be able to do more damage to Eggman's robots. You know, if you have wooden claws or metal claws, you know, maybe that'll help out. So players will be able to customize and suit Knuckles in ways that benefit their playstyle. You know, you want more of a berserker kind of Knuckles where you're more of a glass cannon. You want to put equipment on Knuckles that fully incentivizes running in, doing damage, and dodging and things like that. Like you're not trying to get hit. Whereas somebody who maybe wants to feel like I'm just an invincible tank kind of Knuckles, they want to equip Knuckles with stuff that's more maybe plated or something like that. Give him something, you know? Maybe some kind of vest. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it would look like, but let's just give Knuckles the Black Knight armor. Let's just go there. Let's go to the extreme. But I think you get my point. Like Knuckles is going to be customizable in subtle ways. It's not going to be drastic. He's not going to start using weapons and all that. That's too far. Just nice subtle changes that allow the experience to be a little bit different for each person that plays. And I just think that would be really fun. I think the last thing I want to touch on very briefly would be kind of the cherries on top. Let's talk music and art style. I feel like Sonic has had a fairly monotonous art style fairly recently. I mean, at least to me, it's kind of all starting to blend together. Maybe they could go for the same art style they had with Shadow Generations, and that'd be totally fine. But I guess in my mind, I imagine something a little more stylized, just a little bit. Not to this extent, but take a look at something like Okami with that brushwork art style, you know, that very stylized visual aspect. Maybe kind of leaning into that, or maybe something like Pokemon Legends Arceus. Hopefully the graphics will look better than that, but just that general, I guess I don't want to call it cartoony, but it is cartoony, so I think you get the general idea that I'm trying to throw at you here. And lastly, as far as music, obviously I want to bring back that same rap, chill, mellow vibes that Knuckles has been known for at this point. We're definitely got to get Unknown from ME, maybe even a new remix, who knows. But I will say, I have a single request that can totally be thrown out. It will never happen, but this is my game, so I'm gonna say it anyway. I need a song from Donna Burke. And if you don't know who Donna Burke is, she is the lovely soul that handled like a lot of the music from Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Oh my god, I can't even get into it. Cynthia Harrell, she did Snake Eater. I need her too, but you know, we're not gonna get into that. I just need them to be on the soundtrack, please. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think of my game idea. This is something pretty new for me, sharing my hypothetical games. Maybe I'll do more. I know I think Silver is a game that people are really wanting as of late. I don't know if that has to do with the movie or what, but this is kind of fun. Maybe at some point I'll steer away from Sonic a little bit. God, I'm a Sonic tuber now. Either way, maybe this will be a bit of a series. Thank you guys for watching, and remember, keep hanging in there.